Okay. Hello, Brotherhood of Barley, beer lovers everywhere. Welcome to the second semifinal for the American Adjunct Lager Beer Tournament. Last week, Coors Banquet nipped Bud 3-2, and we'll see what happens this week. We have two more iconic, legendary legacy brands, both originated in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So, but first of all, I'd like to introduce the panelists here tonight. We have top right, Bumpy Road Brewing, Jesse Merrill. Glad you're able to join us tonight, Jesse.
Thanks for having me on again.
Okay, and look forward to your comments. And let's see, bottom left, he needs no introduction. You know, they always say that, then they turn around and introduce him. Well, they can just move along then. That's always wondering why they did that. He needs no introduction. Then they proceed to introduce him.
It's Mr. Dean Martin.
That's right. We all know he hails from Louisiana. He's a beer lover, one of the pioneers in the social media for beer. And bottom right corner, we have from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Oh, yeah.
Thomas Metal 75, Eric Fraunfelter.
Hold on.
Guitarist /drummer.
Sure, yeah. I do think.
And so do a little bit of a little introduction for the beers here. Both of these are, like I said, originated in Milwaukee. The Pabst Blue Ribbon traces its origins back to 1844. Originally, it was Jacob Best. And for the Miller Brewing Company, 1855, Frederick Miller, where he founded the Miller Brewing Company on the grounds of the Plank Road Brewery. And he passed away in 1888, which was 13 years before this brand, Miller High Life, was ever introduced. But the Pabst Brewing Company eventually came into the hands of Frederick Pabst. His daughter married into the brewery, which is never a bad idea if you have visions of owning that company someday. So he was able to purchase 50% from his son-in-law, and later able was to get the other half. So Frederick Pabst became the president of the Pabst Brewing Company. Originally, it was called Best Select, then Pabst Select. Eventually, I think it was in like 1899, they eventually settled on Pabst Blue Ribbon, and they added the red stripe to the can, which is seen until this day. And the Blue Ribbon, to signify all of the awards it's won. At one time, I read that they actually used 1 million feet of Blue Ribbon in 1 year because they hand tied the ribbons on each bottleneck of the beer. Talk about a personal touch that really was at that time. And but then, like I mentioned, Miller High Life, 1903 became known as the champagne of bottled beer, and eventually that became just known as a phrase, the champagne of beers, period. But the sparkling, bubbly appearance, gold, clear as gold, and remains that way. That the marketing of it is very much the same to this day. And
and it was called.
Pardon.
It was called Frederick Miller Lager until 1903. Same beer, but they just rebranded.
And one thing I found that Miller's grandson was an All-American football player at Notre Dame under the Newt Rockne era. And then he became, in 1947, became president of the brewing company. But 7 years later, he passed away in a plane crash. They were headed on a hunting trip to Winnipeg, and he died in that crash along with his son, Fred Jr. But so there's a little bit of sporting history with that lineage too.
Nice.
But the tale of the tape of these two very similar. The Miller High Life, 4.6% ABV, 141 calories, and only 7 IBUs. The Pabst clocks in at 4.8. No IBUs given on the website, and I think the calorie count is much the same as the. It may have it on my can here. Can't see right now.
Not on this can. Not on this
I remember they used to say it was 4.74% alcohol.
Yeah, I noticed that. They rounded it off to the next one. It should be 4.7, I reckon. But anyway.
16-ounce cans.
But it's right in around 145 calorie range. Not anything really different there. But
attractive labels, definitely.
Yes, I have the canned versions myself here.
Yeah, Miller High Life has changed the label. It seemed like 100 times since I started drinking it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My beers are within a month of each other as their Best By date. So.
Yeah, both of these.
Mine are a little different, but they're both within date. I have a quart can of Miller, and I had a 24-ounce can of Pabst Blue Ribbon. I'll put them back in the fridge though, because that Miller quart can doesn't pour too easy.
No.
Tendency to want to spill everywhere. So,
Pabst was the first one to sell 1 million barrels a year. That was in the late. They peaked earlier than some of these other brands, I think.
Late 50s, yeah.
Their heyday was really in the early 1950s.
Yeah, right.
But as years passed along, Schlitz and Budweiser sort of ran to the front of the pack as far as these light American lagers go. And I know when I was reached a drinking age here in the South, Pabst Blue Ribbon had a very bad reputation. Even in the South, it was known as a redneck beer that people didn't want to drink. A lot of people. Budweiser was considered, by then, had sort of assumed the mantle of the king of beers. Budweiser was fine. We had a strong presence of Stroh's here in my area because after they purchased the Schlitz Brewery, Stroh's was very popular. And if you was really on a budget, on the type, you would probably grab a Old Milwaukee. That would be your budget beer. But Pabst Blue Ribbon was really looked down upon.
See, I didn't experience that, but I'm a good bit younger than you, so
yeah.
And I didn't start drinking until I was 27, drinking beer, so I had a little delayed.
But it was back then where this was before everybody had a tattoo. Tattoos were considered something really, sort of out of mainstream. Yeah. And people that drink PBR with a tattoo, these sort of the ne'er-do-wells of society. Interesting, it then out of the Wild Blue, it developed a second life as a hipster beer.
Yup.
Thanks to Pabst, I think it just happened.
I remember
my generation.
A new life.
My people.
And still, I guess to a certain extent, maintains that status today. Although I think they're always looking for what's the next PBR. One to assume that mantle. I think maybe Hamm's has come the closest to that.
Yeah, the premium beers have become popular within the craft beer industry. The good lager
craft beers.
Yep.
I remember I went to Denver, Colorado on a bus trip. I bought. They don't sell these tickets anymore, but you used to be able to buy a ticket for Greyhound that was good for a certain number of days, even up to 60 days. A lot of Europeans would buy that 60-day bus ticket and go all over the United States. But I bought one for 10 days, and I went all the way to Spokane, Washington, and Portland, Oregon. But I was in Colorado, in Denver, touring the capital, and I was tired, and I stopped at this hobo-looking bar. I call it a hobo bar. They're about 2 blocks behind the bus station. I said, boy, this might have been a nice bar in 1940.
A dive bar.
Yeah. So, but they had Pabst Blue Ribbon on, and these were imperial pints. This was no pint. This was no 16. Huge glasses for $1.
Nice.
So I got 2 of them, and I was like, whew, refreshed, but I was sleeping on that bus when
you got your money's worth.
But that's back in 1999. And then right around that time is when the whole hipster thing William's talking about came into play. And then the price started going up.
Cannot tell.
Like bye dollars.
I cannot tell a smell difference between these beers. Absolutely.
No.
But
It's
I'm
not
glad, I think we all have pretty fresh examples of these beers tonight. One thing that I wanted to note here, a little bit of beer news that I haven't seen this reported. I did a Google search that I think the Budweiser has dropped the 110-day freshness for their primary brands also.
Huh.
A few days ago, I was in one of the local convenience stores here. I seen they just put out some beers. And one they put out was the Bud Light. Not much of a Bud Light drinker, but I thought I would pick one up, considering and see what it would taste like at its peak of freshness. So I got a couple cans I got a couple of the 16-ounce aluminum bottles. And I noticed the date on it was September the 24th, the best buy date. So if you do the math,
that's more than 110.
110 days, that would be June the 6th. The day I purchased it was April the 21st. So the math don't add up. They have extended their freshness window for the Bud Light and the Budweiser products. Previously, they had done it to some of their lesser brands, the Rolling Rocks, the World, when it was available, Sign of the Cross, the Busch Signature Lager. But everybody out, the people that are purchased those products, you might want to recalibrate your brain a little bit now to, if you want to determine the freshness of the beer, it might be a little bit different than what you had anticipated. I think this was to fall in line with the Molson Coors. When they redid their website, there is now no more information about they eliminated the frequently asked questions section, which was part of their nutrition information. They showed you on their exact label, the can code or bottle code. That is no longer there. Previously, theirs was a 17-month window, 119 days, I think, reported. I think they give it longer for the malt liquors and ice beers. I think they were typically about 180 days, 6 months, roughly. So I think that both these are just falling in line now and extended their freshness dates. So, like I said, you might want to recalibrate now when you see something on the shelf. It might be a little bit older than you think it is.
Okay.
So I thought that was something maybe worth mentioning here tonight. But so everybody's got the beers in place. You're all on the mound, towing the rubber. Time to sniff and drink them.
Okay.
I've been doing that while you were talking.
I can tell you, they look absolutely identical. There's no color difference.
Look from the PBR, maybe, possibly. They're so similar. You're right.
I did a preseason challenge on my alternate channel, Anti-War, and I made some conclusions, but I was actually promoting this tonight on there, but I only have like 10 viewers. I have like 10 regular viewers on that obscure channel, but
yeah, these look exactly the same.
Many of them are
more,
but
I'm
I was
more head retention out of Miller High Life than I am out of this Pabst Blue Ribbon.
I didn't grab me another glass here.
Yeah, I'm not picking up a whole lot of difference. Like no. Miller might. These are all mights because I don't think it might have more cooked vegetable, and the Pabst might have more of that winey taste. But I was
yeah.
They're like
there's not much of a difference in the aromas either. I think there's a little slight bit of sweetness over the Pabst, like with the Miller. I think it's a little touch sweeter in the aroma.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think there's no real practical difference. And in my booklet, if I'm buying either one of these, I'm only going to focus on one factor. And I know you know what that is.
My factor is that 16-ounce 6-packs of both of these at the store that I went to in Massachusetts were exactly, I thought that was a little high for both of these, were exactly $6.99. So maybe Busch Beer wins. Ooh, I don't know. All right. I'm throwing the pitch. First pick for my team.
I think that these days Pabst Blue Ribbon in Louisiana might be a little higher than Miller High Life, if you can believe it, but it's true.
I do believe that. That's what I thought going into the store, but they're the exact same price.
I mean, it's marginal, the difference, but and it depends where you go.
First week for me, there's hardly any difference in flavor as well. These are almost identical beers.
When I first started drinking Pabst Blue Ribbon in 1996, I thought, and that could have been totally just in my mind, I thought it had a little more of a gamey or strange flavor. But now I don't really notice any difference. But it could have been of 24 years of drinking 15.2% alcohol.
Yeah.
Goose stuff, you know.
Yep.
And MD 2020.
Oh yeah. Ooh, high carbonation.
They're both pleasant. They have a medium body and they have a crisp finish. It's really a case study in what the American beer scene was like in the mid 1970s. It was 200 different labels with the same product in it.
I feel Miller High Life is got way more CO2 and it's way more carbonated and prickly. And it feels like it's a heavier beer because of that, to me at least, in body. But again, what Jay said, you're so close neck and neck with these things, but I think that is what I'm getting. And that's probably why I'm getting lacing out of Miller High Life. I mean, damn. I'm not getting it out of the Pabst at all.
See, when you have something like this, the only real way to tell is you do a blind taste test, and you do it 10 times, not once, because that could be a fluke. You got to have replication. But then, who in the world is going to do that? Not too many people.
Yeah.
Then you just call it.
The Miller lacing is good on this one.
Yeah, I would say so.
I noticed that when I did
my Miller. That's the Miller. That's the Pabst. So the Miller definitely has better lacing.
It's like swirly artwork almost.
Yeah. When I did my preliminary challenge this afternoon, I noticed that the Miller High Life had a lot more lacing, but I don't see much difference tonight. I don't know why.
Actually, as I'm going back and forth, sipping back and forth, they have like the same fruity like ester coming up in the flavor there. Ester is more of maybe an aroma thing, but it kind of a little bit of like a fruity taste to it. I think that the Miller High Life, at least to me, I noticed the fruitiness right up front and throughout. The Pabst seems to be more clean on the front end, and then it has that fruitier finish.
I would agree with that.
Like an identical finish, but I think forefront, I think Pabst is just a little bit cleaner.
Yeah. I think more of the maltiness comes out of Pabst Blue Ribbon. Not like Pilsner biscuity, but more along those lines than the Miller High Life. It could be more of a corn syrup, the dextrose in the Miller. I think they're both using the same thing. They're both using the corn syrup as their
that's right.
But I think it feels like that comes out more in your Miller High Life. So maybe I'm able to detect a little bit more bitterness and maybe a slightly bit more maltiness out of the Pabst because of that. But that could be my brain playing tricks on me, trying to find something to say about it. Maybe
yesterday evening when I left the hospital, on the way home I grabbed a Hams.
Yeah,
they sell the 16-ounce cans here for 79 cents at convenience stores.
Ooh.
I came home, popped it, sat down, turned on my computer, and the guy on Jay's Wednesday night, he was talking about Hams at the very moment that I said, this is spooky.
Oh, right.
Because Ronald Sutton was ranting about him.
The moment I sat down here, I turned on the computer, I got this 16-ounce and a glass, and he's talking about the Hams. And he said like it's 100, it was 100 beer. And last night, that hit the spot. I got home, I was tired, thirsty, and for that moment, that Hams was 100. Maybe not objectively, but 100% satisfaction. And that beer is definitely different than these two I'm drinking tonight.
Yeah.
I can tell the difference between the
Yeah.
ham and these two.
Yeah.
I think I got my winner picked out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. You want to see something interesting real fast? Here's a bottle I bought, I think, in 1996. There's the cap. Of course, we know what the cap looks like. But
Or no.
one of those mid-neck bottle, not a short neck, but like a mid-neck bottle, and it's got an actual ribbon on it. It's a paper ribbon, but it's an actual ribbon.
Oh, that's cool.
In which I've bent up so many times. And then there's the label. This is from the mid-90s when they still had a ribbon, but it was a machine, you know, on a thing. Then they came out with this one, which was more of a silver, focus on the color silver.
Oh.
See all the silver?
Yeah.
And this was like around the year 1999. And then they went with this one around 2001 or 2 with a thin red ribbon behind the blue ribbon. So I've collected these over the years, and it's interesting to see how they'll slightly change them. Now, Miller High Life will change them about every year or 2 or 3 years. They're constantly changing. The problem with Miller is it's all that red, and it fades, boy. I'll tell you, that red fade.
The Miller is iconic. The image. It's almost like the Yankee pinstripes in baseball. I don't think they're going to change. Where Miller High Life has been like some of these teams. San Diego Padres, once the uniforms look like tacos from Taco Bell.
Is this supposed to be like the sticker that you'd find around a bottleneck? Kind of looks like a bottleneck sticker.
Yeah.
That's like a 4 cross sign that the Miller, that's the can they used it.
Yep.
Yeah.
But wait, you're saying Pabst is iconic, but the Miller will change a lot?
Yeah, Miller's like the San Diego Padres baseball team. They're changing the uniforms like every couple of years.
Yeah, they got an identity issue.
They do. Like I said, at one time they had these. They said the players looked like tacos from Taco Bell. They were brown, orange, and yellow uniform. And Steve Garvey was playing for the Padres at that time. He signed from the Dodgers, and so it's a different attitude these two take toward marketing.
Mm-hmm.
But Pabst, of all the beers brewed, I say brewed by Pabst, contracted brewed, half of the stuff is Pabst Blue Ribbon, 50% of it. So we can now maybe see why these others are called hidden brands, because they're only available in select markets, much less distribution, much less production. So that the Pabst is going to live and die on this one brand. This is what they have. And like I said, it found a second life through the hipster movement. It just sort of one of those coincidences just happened.
Right. They're not going to live and die on red, white, and blue lager, which
I knew a brand at one time that was quite popular.
They said they brought it back, but try finding it.
I've never seen that.
You ain't going to see it.
They brought back a reformatted version, which quickly died.
So yeah,
we don't like that.
There's no denying the champagne of beers thing with the amount of carbonation on Miller or High Life.
But
definitely feels like a champagne.
Oddly enough, one of the oddball Pabst brewing beers that we can still get around here in New Orleans is Schaefer Light, of all things.
Random. I've only seen Schaefer once in a 40-ounce bottle. I had to buy that.
Yeah, random. I found a 40-ounce bottle on U.S. Highway 40 in Baltimore, Maryland, and I didn't get shot either when I went into that.
Yeah.
But I did think I had about a 50-50 shot of getting killed. But
50 shot.
But I bought it, and I still have it. This is the funny thing, and then I'm going to call my winner. I'm sorry, William. Pabst Brewing told me this. This is what Pabst told me. I wish I still had that email. I could find it maybe. The lady says, "Oh, Schaefer is not sold in bottles, only cans." I said, "Okay, Pabst Brewing Company." About 8 months later, I go in the liquor store. There's a brown bottle, says Schaefer. I know I'm right. She must be wrong.
Nothing like having great knowledge about your product line.
Right.
Yeah.
She probably meant 12-ounce bottles, but
there it was.
I say bottle, I mean bottle of any size.
Okay. I think I know mine.
Yeah.
I have to say too for these ones, because the ones that we did last week, in both of them I could pick up on what I consider like a cardboard or clay note. And out of both of these, there's really no cardboard or clay note that I was picking up like with the Budweiser and the Coors. So
you're preferring
that's
these.
interesting. But no, I don't mind the cardboard and clay note. It reminds me of a lot of the cervezas I have. I pick that up a lot in the like Tecate and all that stuff. So
Okay.
I've come accustomed to it. It's kind of like the skunkiness of a Heineken. You know, you kind of expect it and want it.
Dr. Frostybrew, you're right. I used to buy the Schaefer 24 packs, and it was called the Weekender. Yep,
Oh,
the
wow.
Weekender. And you know how much that suitcase was? $7.98.
Holy crap.
Well,
The Weekender.
The Weekender, $7.98 a 24 pack.
Take
And that
it
was
off the weekend.
that was for years. That was for years. Oh yes, sir.
Okay. Do you want to do the reveal then? Have the final score?
Yeah.
Okay.
We need the audience.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Well, we all win. Yeah.
Wow. We just saw a shutout pitched.
Eat your heart out, Tim Lindsay.
But I'm gonna tell you this though, honestly, it's so close. I don't even feel comfortable. This was like a last second shot in a game that went back and forth all game, and you got lucky. And you have to take into account there were some fouls that should have been called, some fouls that should not have been called. So you can't have one brand getting the other one's face talking about we're a great team.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, if you talk about appearance, I mean, definitely the lacing everybody mentioned with the Miller was a lot better than what was coming off with the PBR. But I mean, for me, my whole reason why I like PBR more was exactly the flavor, because I said there wasn't much of a difference in the aromas, not too much in the flavor, except the PBR did seem to have a little bit more of a cleaner start in the mouth, like it was a little more crisp or whatnot, and less fruity at first than what the Miller was coming off as. The Miller just has like a fruity tone throughout for me. So
I get a bit more of this is minimal. I get a bit more of a hop, sort of a spicy zing, and a little bit more of that pale maltiness, a little bit more of that bready character. I feel like I'm tasting a slight more amount of the beer's ingredients other than just the corn syrup. As with the Miller, I felt like that was a little bit more upfront. Not that that was bad at all. It still had a nice, clean undertone. It didn't have the dirty cardboardy thing that Bumpy mentioned, which is good. So both of these I would buy again and again and again. But yeah, Pabst PBR wins today. No doubt about that.
in my case, I think they're almost identical, but there's some slightly little more crisper Pabst aspect to it. But believe me, I can honestly tell you this. If I was going to buy them at the grocery store, price would be my only consideration.
Yep.
The only consideration, price, unless they had a different can or bottle that I needed to put in my collection. Aside from that,
one can was empty and a 12-pack. What?
Not a ringing endorsement for but I've had my issues with the Pabst, the company, and here's a case where he actually it affected the consumer directly. So
I see this all the time. I see this all the time. Mayonnaise coming out of a 12-pack that has nothing in it. Soup cans that are empty. I opened a Pabst Blue Ribbon beer around 1997. It had a rubber tab in it. Came pouring out into my glass. I said, well, that's nice. It's not just the beer industry. You can find some very bizarre things.
Yeah. I have actually bought a 30-pack of Genesee Cream Ale. Last time I bought it was probably last month sometime. So I'm putting all the beers away. I'm noticing that most of them are sticky.
Sticky.
And then I picked up one beer, and there was maybe about that much beer left in it. I couldn't find any puncture marks. It looked like the seal and everything was closed, but somehow that beer must have emptied out inside the pack. So
damn.
I wanted to tour the Genesee Brewery 4 years ago, and the guy was like, well, we don't give tours. But, man, I wanted to see what was behind those brick walls, and I bet it would have been something to see. I was not driving all the way to Rochester to see some phony baloney showcase brewery in one big room. I wanted to see the real brewery, you know. So that kind of hacked me off, you know.
For me, I've probably drank more Miller High Life over the last few years than any of these adjunct lagers, added them all up. Miller High Life and Hams have been the two I've drank the most of, probably followed by Schlitz. But Schlitz is getting harder to get in this area. To me, Miller High Life is like the old faithful. It's always there. It's always your friend. It's readily available. It's nationwide distribution.
Ladies and
here, it's probably available in more configurations than anything else. You can get anything from the 12 little pony bottle, 7 ounce, up to a 40-ounce glass bottle.
just so you know,
say what?
In the
what are you saying?
The Cincinnati Bengals, if you are watching the draft, they're on the clock right now for their first pick.
I know. I'm about to get off. I'm about to go. All right.
The cans, you can get the 12-ounce cans, 16-ounce cans, 24-ounce cans, 32-ounce cans,
40.
Endless amount of configurations. But for me, in isolation, the Miller High Life is very good. When I pitted it against the Pabst, side by side, real time, I thought the Pabst was better.
Mm-hmm.
It was drier, a little cleaner tasting.
Drier.
Right. The Miller High Life had a little vegetal quality.
Wasn't that full?
Cooked corn, maybe a cooked, like mixed vegetables, like the can, mixed vegetables. A little more vegetable.
I've talked about that. Yeah.
And I think the dryness at the end for the Pabst for me was that little bit of the winey note, like a white wine. I think comes from the Carlsberger yeast they use. So for me, it just came down to side by side. I just thought the Pabst was a little bit better product.
Agreed.
But I would never turn. I won't quit drinking Miller High Life, and I never would turn one of these down, regardless of the situation. But for me, that just
Pabst
drinking side by side just revealed to me the Pabst to be a little bit better.
Before I get off of this, I want to say that you might have noticed over the last few months that Miller, meaning what that means is Molson Coors, has quietly changed the recipe to differentiate Miller High Life and Miller Genuine Draft. They used to have identical specs across the board, but now they've changed it. Miller Genuine Draft is rated at 4.7, High Life at 4.6. Genuine Draft, 144 calories, High Life, 141. And then there's different hop. The recipe, the ingredients is actually different. But up until about a year or two ago, it was identical specs. So either Miller's been watching my videos and everybody else's videos. Well, we talked about that.
Yeah.
Or they decided to differentiate the two products for whatever reason.
I think somebody was watching Bumpy Road Brewery's videos because then another dominant beer reviewer started reviewing all these saisons recently.
Oh, wow. Somebody's
Darwin's beer reviews.
Who? Somebody's
One thing I wanted to mention was that it used to be when they had the NCAA basketball tournament Final Four, they had a consolation game.
Right. LSU played in the last one.
So I just want to throw it out. Would you be interested in doing a consolation round? Budweiser versus Miller High Life.
Ooh, yeah.
Maybe.
That way, one of them wouldn't come home empty-handed. They would get a chance to get a third-place trophy and then move on to the finals, which would be.
So who's going for the silver in the Olympics?
Coors Banquet versus the PBR.
And that's something you want to come home with, a third-place trophy.
Right. But if you want to just be interested to see how those two pit against each other.
They haven't picked yet.
I would. I still know what my big contention is coming up. Eric inexplicably left, but he does that. That's his standard operating procedure. Yeah, Joe Burrow is probably going to go number one. It's not exactly a surprise. I think we should bring in Busch because it's number 10 in the whole United States. Think about that. Of all the beer brands in the United States, which is what, thousands?
Yeah,
Which is
I told everybody that I skipped over Bush intentionally because I didn't think they had the legacy of the other ones.
no, it
Or
does.
the
It does not. No, it doesn't.
prestige. But if you look at the cold hard facts, they are the second best selling, right behind their stablemate Budweiser. So you could make a case that if you want to add a challenge, that they could take on the champion.
Right, like we're gonna have.
I'm calling you out. I mean, this could be done on a whole line of beers. Just have a challenge series, one beer versus the other one.
Well, you
I
got
like the format here where people are actually, I've enjoyed this myself.
yeah. Well, think of it. You've got Pabst Blue Ribbon going up against I can't. My mind is not working. Against last week's winner for the championship,
Coors Banquet.
Coors Banquet. Couldn't think of it. So you got Coors Banquet and Pabst Blue Ribbon for the championship. Now you got third place, just a consolation, Pabst and Bud. Fine. But then here's
Bud and Miller High Life.
I mean,
yeah. It's been a long day, right?
it really hasn't been a long day. I haven't.
Okay, well, I was trying to save you there for a moment, but anyway.
No,
but,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Pabst. I mean, you got Pabst versus Coors, and then you got the follow up Budweiser versus Miller High Life as the third place, right?
But you could have a round say, "I'm calling you out." Bush challenges the winner of this Final Four. So Bush could challenge the Coors Banquet or PBR, whichever wins.
Right. Well, before I had that little mental breakdown, I was thinking maybe you could, whoever wins third place, all right, you could bring Bush against the third place.
Yeah, you could do. Yeah, that's possible.
If Bush wins the third place head to head, or let's say Budweiser wins it, then they go back to face the champ.
I think I'd like to keep the four together as a entity before.
Yeah, well, I'm saying you could do that later, but of course, the next one has to be Coors versus Pabst, right?
Another reason I sort of left the Bush out was because I was considering maybe a budget AAL Final Four, maybe Bush, Milwaukee's Best Premium, Old Milwaukee, possibly Hams, Rolling Rock.
It's tricky.
The ones that people get the most of, and probably everybody can't get every one of them, but they will be able to get enough that they at least will be able to participate in one round. And if their beer wins, then they would be in 2 out of 3. So because once you get past these very top ones, nobody's going to be able to get every one of them. That's just not realistic.
Right, but that's why I was saying Bush, because everybody can get Bush.
That's the one that it certainly belongs because of its availability.
Right, and it's like a quasi budget beer because it's still got its NASCAR sponsorship, and it's kind of not real. It's always been on that tipping point since it came out. You got the big. I mean, you're never going to see Schaefer sponsoring a NASCAR team. You're not going to see Rolling Rock. Well, you could see Rolling Rock maybe, but I doubt it.
There's the green Rolling Rock car.
Yeah, right. Here comes
the green Rolling
Rock. The one from Margaritaville, the Land Shark car. Well, you might see that because they even had Land Shark Stadium for about a year.
But whatever, regardless of the beer, I like the format of having a winner. And
I do too. I like the format. Yeah, and I've been doing that with my liquor taste challenges in the morning. I do it like a tournament,
But we'll wrap this one up now. We've got this was a shutout, but I think Warren Spahn pitched a shutout for Milwaukee. We'll say that. There was that one year it was Spahn and Saint and Pray for Rain. They had 2 good pitchers, and that year they won the World Series in 1957.
57.
They beat the New York Yankees with Warren Spahn and Johnny Sain as their main 2 pitchers.
Milwaukee Braves.
Milwaukee was a great, was a very big baseball. Unfortunately, they eventually lost the franchise, and they got a franchise back. But anyway, I think all this is 4-0. I think it was a close shutout.
Right. It was like the first game was 3-2, and the second game was 4-3, and the third game was 1-0, and the fourth game was 6-5. It was
like I said, you know, I like Miller High Life only when drinking these two together. Did a sort of, I think it got exposed a little bit for me, that vegetal quality, which on its own might be considered character. But when you pit it against another one, it became more like a little bit of a flaw or a off flavor.
right, because how many people say, "Oh, let me sit down in my easy chair and drink a beer that tastes like mixed vegetables from Del Monte," you know?
But many times character, it's like Italian cars. They may not be the most reliable people, other Ferraris. They have character. A Honda is not a Honda is like a refrigerator, an appliance. It does its job. It gets you from point A to point B. But there's no emotion there. There's no passion.
That's
it
why
goes on with all types of products. It's
that's
the functionality versus the form.
That's why Daimler-Benz bought Chrysler in 1998, because Daimler-Benz had a lot of character, but they didn't have good maintenance.
Right. But that happens with products too. You know, it's the functionality versus form. It's always a classic, you know, how we're going to design our product. Function over form, form over function. But the PBR just in the end was I thought just tasted a little bit better.
Yeah.
Still higher quality.
Yeah.
But
just by a hair.
So I mixed these, so I don't know if it's now considered Pabst High Life or if it's Miller Blue Ribbon.
Miller Blue.
Miller Blue Ribbon.
And I mentioned during the redneck period for PBR, in 1973, Johnny Russell had a country hit with Redneck's White Sox and Blue Ribbon beer, which was a big hit on the country charts.
Rednecks, White Sox, and
Blue Ribbon beer. It's you can listen to it on YouTube, but it was a one hit wonder, but the one hit was very big. And but okay, we'll wrap this up now and look forward to the upcoming rounds. And thank you for joining me. And until next time, bottoms up and don't spill a drop.
Unless you got the quart can, you're gonna spill a little.
Yeah, that's right. That's a caveat there.